2008 financial crisis, one of the worst economic disasters since the Great Depression in the 1930s, a time when people with bad credit and unstable jobs had access to a mortgage, a type of loan given by banks to help people purchase a house. During this time, many people found themselves stuck in the debt cycle due to unstable jobs and other factors, and were unable to afford and pay back their mortgage payments. This led to a large-scale economic breakdown during which, according to the Northwestern University, more than 8 million Americans lost their jobs, and almost 900,000 people lost their homes. Although the economy is recovering from this crisis, the cost of living and housing has risen significantly. According to the US Bureau of Statistics, prices for housing were 610.76% higher in 2018 than they were in 1970. In my home city, Melbourne, houses are approximately 31 times as costly as they were in 1975. New generations such as millennials and Generation Z, two generations reaching adulthood in the early 21st century, are struggling to afford housing due to the rising cost of living and massive student debt. Millennials today have taken on at least 300% more student debt than their parents. In fact, the tuition at Harvard is now 17 times as costly as it was in 1973, which has landed many young adults in large amounts of debt, amounts that feel impossible to chip away at. With all this in mind, it is not hard to see why I'm concerned about my generation's future in a world of rising housing costs. So how will the younger generations even afford houses? Affordable homes are important to the economic health and vitality of communities. Affordable homes help attract residents to a community because they can have closer access to facilities. They support the local workforce so people can live within the same district as their workplace for an affordable price. This allows for shorter commutes, producing less air pollution due to less time traveling in a vehicle. In revitalizing communities, the construction of affordable homes can also help stimulate economic growth. They free up funds within families that allow them to spend more on healthcare and food. Living in decent, affordable housing reduces mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, and stress that high housing costs will lead to foreclosure and eviction. But conventional affordable homes are scarce, so why not consider an alternative? The tiny house movement. Occasionally on wheels, these minuscule structures are the future of affordable, minimal, and sustainable living. So what makes them so revolutionary? In 1973, the average newly constructed US home measured 150 square meters. By 2017, that average had increased to 240 square meters, a 60% increase, when tiny homes are usually measuring out around 10 to 40 square meters. This increase has harmed the environment in many different ways, including loss of green space, increased air pollution, and energy consumption. Housing costs have risen around 600% since 1973, and the unemployment rates have increased. Enter the tiny house, a movement which provides a sustainable and low-impact way of living, allowing people to live flexible lives without the restrictions of a permanent structure. A tiny house is a low-cost living alternative for places where the housing market is too expensive. Tiny houses can be 10 to 20 times lower in costs than a conventional home, allowing you to work towards a debt-free lifestyle. On top of this, living in a tiny home allows one to minimize the size of their mortgages. Actually, 68% of the people making the move towards tiny homes have no need for mortgages at all. Tiny homes are also countering poverty and housing insecurity. Just look at Detroit. The CASS nonprofit organization have faced a problem in a city with major issues with poverty and lack of decent, affordable housing. This organization is building tiny houses and offering them to families and those who are homeless. Many people are leaving the comforts of their large homes and joining the tiny house movement willingly. People have begun to let go of the misconception that bigger is better. People choose to downsize to tiny homes for many reasons, such as living a more environmentally friendly lifestyle, simplifying their lives by reducing possessions, becoming more mobile, or achieving financial freedom. During my research, I found that after downsizing, people were more likely to eat less energy-intensive food products and adopt more environmentally conscious eating habits, such as eating more locally and growing more of their own food. People traveled less by car, motorcycle, bus, train, and airplane, and drove more fuel-efficient cars than they did before downsizing. Tiny homeowners are saving. They're able to travel more and participate in activities that bring them joy versus working in a job that they hate because they've got bills to pay. This is why I'm determined to show my generation alternative ways of living. Housing affordability, avoiding the debt cycle, and bringing light to the environmental benefits of off-grid living are concepts that I want to explore and inspire. So I decided to build my own tiny home. Well, not exactly. I quickly learned that within my project's timeframe, that was not exactly possible. I then realized designing a model of my own home was a more realistic start. This model can be used to inspire the community and to consider alternative ways of living. This transportable eco house. The plan started as sketches done by me and my dad. These sketches were inspired by the French architect Le Corbusier, who once said, "A house is a machine for living in." Then we decided to start building a scale model based on our rough design. As the model started to come together, we came up with more and more unique and innovative ideas. It took a few weeks to build and a lot of hours in the iHub. The idea was to make it as cost affordable as possible, so we tried to use upcycled materials. One of those materials was a shipping container. We chose the shipping container because it's made from a super strong Core-10 steel, they're relatively low in costs, and because they are transportable. There is also a worldwide surplus of unseaworthy shipping containers from shipping companies that are ready for repurposing. The house runs on an off-grid solar system with batteries and an inverter that powers all of our energy-efficient appliances and components of the house. It has adjustable legs so that the house can be installed on uneven terrain without any excavation. The house includes a water catchment and filtering system and a waterless toilet that flushes with foam to conserve precious water. It quickly became a viable solution to the housing issue for my generation. 2 documentaries I watched, one called Small is Beautiful, which was all about the tiny house movement, and another called Minimalism, which was all about living with less and only the possessions that add value to your life. These documentaries inspired me to design my own tiny home. This year, I'm sadly leaving Bali to return to Melbourne, where I can hopefully turn my idea into a reality, to build the house for real. So go support my GoFundMe page. Just kidding. These documentaries taught me that sustainable living can have many different meanings. Tiny homes are considered to be more affordable, but also beautiful pieces of artwork, just like in the photo here. They taught me how you can live as comfortably as ever in small spaces. In a world of rising housing costs, these spectacular little doll houses may be the possible solution for the future of housing. Every day this movement grows, and so should we. With all seriousness, I hope you were inspired by my talk. I would like to thank Puck Baxter and the iHub team, all the Quest teachers for guiding me and keeping me on track, and everyone else who was willing to help. And of course my dad, who was my mentor for this project and was always going out of his way to help me when I needed. Thanks for listening, and remember, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.